How are you doing? In this class today, we are gonna talk about phonetics and phonology, right? And English around the world. So, this class is gonna show you a lot how it works, the articulatory system of speaking, right? Uh, and also talk about international phonetic alphabet. I'm gonna show some examples of people who are very skillful on using phonetic skills, I also show some uh, English pronouns around the world, for you to know that sometimes we get the standard of United States on England, but English has a variety of accents and vocabulary, way of speaking, right? And I'm gonna show you this in this class, okay? See you.
Hello, boys and girls. This is me, your teacher Marcelo. Today we're gonna talk about phonetics and phonology and English around the world. So we're gonna discuss about how the way people speak English is different in different situations, in different places, and things like that. Okay. First of all, uh, we're gonna discuss about phonetics. So we have the picture here about the phonetical structure of a human being, right? Most of the times, it's very similar among human beings in general, right? Of course, one has a problem here, a problem there, but in general, it's very similar, right? So first of all, some concepts to you. So phonetics is the studying of physical aspects of the phonemes, the human sound. So the phoneme is the sound that can be pronounced by a human being in normal condition, in normal situation, right? So we learn how to develop in language by controlling the phonemes and the way they use and pay attention to differences that we're going to talk a little bit later. So then we have some divisions of phonetics. So you have articulatory phonetics, is the classification of the phonemes, voice place, and the way of articulation, right? So if it's a vowel or consonant, if it's high, low, if it touches the teeth, it doesn't touch, and the way of articulation. So because the way you articulate a phoneme, it can make change the sound, and this sound can make a change in the meaning of what you say, right? Then we have acoustic phonetics, is the physical characteristics of the sound, right? So it's necessary to know this part of phonetics because, for example, I'm recording this audio to you, right? This class. So I have to be aware of the way I'm speaking to not make it sound harder for you to understand what I'm saying. And I try to speak in a tone that it's pleasant for you to listen, right? Because I could be speaking this way for 20 minutes. It would be so boring. You would say, come on, teacher Marcelo, this is not the right thing to do. Of course, some people say that I'm also have a good voice, right? And actually, it's more about training than the natural voice, right? Because you can have, I think, for example, my voice is a bit nasal. So I have to control to not be too nasal for me, right? And also we have auditory phonetics, perception from auditory system. So this is also one thing important to tell. It's because sometimes you say something in a way, but the other people understand the other way. So get it differently of what you're speaking. For example, one very short example that it always happens. Sometimes you say something in an ironic way, but the person who listens to you don't get it, right? And then you have to explain that you are trying to be ironic, right? It happens to me many times, right? Okay, so talk a little bit more about phonetics. We have here the image of the phonetic alphabet, right? The International Phonetic Alphabet is considered to be the oldest representative organization for phoneticians. So phoneticians, the people who study phonetics, right? So it's considered to be a scientific study of phonetics, and it shows the different sounds that can be pronounced by human beings. No, each sound has a symbol, right? And people will be guided by these symbols to speak properly, right? And then here as you can see in the left side, we have the image of Karol Wojtyła, also known as John Paul II, and he was from Poland. He was a pope for a while, and it's very interesting to bring this guy for our class because I remember when I was younger, many people said that, oh, the Pope, he speaks like 35 languages, he's a master, whatever. And actually, late in life, I found out that he was not as proficient in as many languages, as people thought, you know. But he was very intelligent because he was reading texts that were written in phonetic alphabet, right? So he knew the sounds he had to pronounce, right? Sometimes probably he didn't even know the meaning or what he was saying. He was, of course, trusting in translators and things like, and people like that, right? Which is a risk, right? I'm a translator too. So translating is power. So sometimes you can use it the way you want, you know? And in the right side, you have the International Phonetic Alphabet for singers, right? And it's very interesting because, for example, I have a friend. She's a singer. She's awesome singer. She sings like Jesus, like amazingly. And she loves this singer Mariah Carey, right? She loves a lot of singers, but Mariah Carey is her top one. She sings Mariah Carey songs perfectly, sometimes even better than Mariah herself, but she doesn't know a word she's saying. And she lived a very interesting experience because I went to her concert. She was there singing, lovely. She's also a very beautiful girl. At the end of the concert, she came. We started chatting. We started talk, and then came one guy. I think he was Dutch or German, and he started to speak in English to her, like she was proficient in English. And she came to me and said, Marcelo, eu não tô entendendo nada que ele tá falando. And then I had to translate what he said to her. And he couldn't believe she doesn't speak English because she sang, but she doesn't speak, right? It was very interesting to show that there are different abilities when you're dealing with language, right? So here we also talk about phonology, is the studying of distinctive and constitutive traits of the phonemes. You know, so when a phoneme is different from the other, and you can make the the changing of phonemes change the meaning of what you say, right? And also we have the allomorphs, is different forms of the same phoneme, right? And then I have here some examples like jumped, this ed that it's related to the simple past, right? When you have jumped, it sounds like T, and repelled sounds like D, right? We also have this phoneme that it's related to TH, right? Like think, right? And to know these phonemes, of course, we don't have this phoneme in Brazilian Portuguese language. This TH, think, about think, we don't have it, right? So sometimes people say think, sink is a way to try to use it, the phoneme closer to the original one. But you have to take care of some misunderstanding, because I think you is different from I think you. So when you say I think you, it can sound different and it had another meaning, right? So you have to pay attention to this. And also remember a situation a friend of mine was having, because we were talking to some American girls, and he's a hip-hop musician, and he said to the girl, I'm a raper. And this girl almost died, because raper is a sexual abuser. He wanna say he was a rapper. So if you see, it's just one sound: raper, rapper, raper, rapper. But it made a confusion that he was so lucky that I was there to help him. If I was not there, I don't know what could happen. You know, the girl, she was white as snow when she heard raper, right? And she was around like 6, 7 boys, you know. It was her and her friend, only 2 girls over there. She said, oh my God, the guy's gonna rape me and I'm gonna die and whatever. So you must pay attention to different phonemes to not commit these mistakes. Okay, so now we're gonna talk about English around the world, right? We have here 4 pictures, right? We have at the top left there's this video of the guy nails every accent. Is about one guy who develops different accents of English language for like it was different people speaking English, right? Then we have on top right is a picture of Bob Marley. Bob Marley is a well-known reggae musician, amazing one. For instance, I love his music, his lyrics. He loves football too, right? This t-shirt is not a Brazilian selection t-shirt. Actually is a Jamaican selection t-shirt, because Jamaican has the flag of Jamaica has green and yellow color too. In the bottom left, we have this guy, Nigel Glocker. He's the drummer for Saxon. Saxon is a British band, and he's talking about not understanding his bandmates. We're going to talk about it later. And in the bottom right is Joel Santana, when he was coach for South Africa, trying to speak English. So, and this is very interesting because Joel Santana was criticized by many Brazilian people saying that it was funny, people laugh and all these things. But for example, South African people, they loved the effort he did to try to speak a language that he was not too proficient, actually. So Brazilians, we sometimes are too critical about people, right? So now we're going to discuss some details of each one of these one. So here we have the transcription of Bob Marley's interview to the program Like It Is. And actually I spent a lot of time to do this transcription. I think I spent 1 week listen back, listen again, because Bob Marley, besides he speaks a different kind of English that is named Jamaican Patois, he doesn't articulate very clearly in this interview, right? Probably he was in a relaxed moment. He had smoked something. Who knows, right? And here we have this interview, and the thing I want to point in this first slide is that he used the expression something else. He doesn't say something else. He says something else. And at first I listened, I didn't get it. But when you get, that's another tip for you. If you don't get it, in a way, try to see the context, So I say, okay, something else, right? And I got it after that. Then in the second slide, we have when he talks, the interviewer asking, when did you begin to get involved in music, really? And he said, 1958. And here he make an inversion of the vowels. So instead of 8, he say it. Maybe it's a characteristic of Jamaican patois. Maybe it's the way he speaks, But it's interesting to you to know that it's not another word. It's a different way of pronounce the same word, right? Then we have this image of Nigel Glocker, the drummer for Saxon. And I brought this to you because sometimes we think, okay, all British, they understand each other because it's the same country. All American, they understand each other because they all speak English. But actually, this example is perfect to show you that you are not alone when you are not understanding when somebody said in English. Because I'm going to read for you and comment a little bit. He said, open quotation marks, the strangest thing I found was the accent. Because being a southerner, Graham, one of the original guitar, I couldn't understand a word he said. Not a word, really. I may be speaking to a penguin. I have no idea, so luckily Steve, the other bass player, or Biff, would translate what he said. I just go, yeah, all right. Where you go? What did he say? So that's how it was really. Close quotation marks. So this is Nigel Glocker talking about, he's from the south of England. He come to the north, so it's different way of use the language. And he said there's this guitar player at the time named Graham, and he couldn't understand a word that Graham said, right? Because Graham's from the north and he's from the south, right? So it's just you to imagine, like, if you travel to another state in Brazil, if you go to Pará, if you go to Bahia, if you go to Amazonas, probably you'll not understand 100% what people say, right? Because each place has its own characteristic. And then we have the notorious Joel Santana, right? And this interview became kind of viral, right? A lot of people criticize, a lot of people making fun of it, right? Actually, at the time, I was laughing a lot too. I said, Jesus, that's so funny, the way he speaks. But nowadays, I see differently. I think like, okay, it's interesting to see that he was doing an effort to speak a language that he doesn't have proficiency. So nowadays, I see differently, But actually, of course, it's funny, because he speaks the way he speaks, right? But Joel Santana is a very smart guy. Everybody was criticizing him, making fun of him. And what did he do? He made a contract with the Head and Shoulders and got a lot of money to make some advertisement where he used his way of speaking English, his funny way of speaking English, and it became kind of very good for him, something that he should be kind of afraid of saying, but he was using the way he could, so it was very clever of him to do this, right? Using something that it was negative as a positive for him. So very interesting the way he did. And it's also, of course, I would say, as if you are a coach for a South African team, right? It's good to learn a little bit more, to get a more standard English, right? But at least he tried, So I think it was good the way he did. And here we have this guy nails every accent, right? It's very interesting because as I saw the video, I thought this guy probably he is in a group of footballers, because they have some clothes about football and things like that, right? And then here we have some accents that he used, like he used Irish, Northern Irish, Welsh, Scottish, Spanish, French, German, Dutch, South African, Italian, and Australian. And as you can see in this slide, these are the languages, and also is the people who use this language, right? So it's good. Let's see if you can check these languages to the country that uses the language, right? So if you see there in the next slide, you see that Irish from Ireland, Northern Irish from North Ireland, Welsh from Wales, Scottish, Scotland, Spanish, Spain, French, France, German, Germany, Dutch, the Netherlands, and here some people say Holland, but actually Holland is a province of the Netherlands. So the right name of the country is the Netherlands, right? South African, South Africa, Italian, Italy, and Australian, Australia, right? And in closing, there's some exercise to you. You can do, you can write down, you can record. We have some questions here. So the first one, which one of the accents is the most difficult to understand? Why? So this question is about your perception of the accent. So which one is the difficult for you? What's the reason made difficult for you? The second one, which one of the accents is the easiest to understand? Why? So now is the opposite. So if one is the most difficult, I ask you also which one is the easiest to understand. Sometimes, I think I said in class before, you are related to an accent that are closer to some culture that you like. For example, if I like hip-hop music, I will be closer to Ebonics. Ebonics is the variety of English spoken mostly spoken by hip-hop musicians, hip-hop artists, people who love hip-hop, things like that, right? Third question, can you understand Joel Santana interviews this transcription? Can you translate it to Brazilian Portuguese? So it's an exercise to you to see if you Joel Santana's English is a bit peculiar, let's say. You do the exercise to see if you can translate it to Brazilian Portuguese. There's also some noises in the way he speak, right? Noises in the meaning of words that are not but in the right places and think there's some mix with Brazilian, Portuguese, and English. But let's see if you can do this exercise. Translate what he speaks in Joel Santana's English to Brazilian Portuguese. Number 4, what do you do to improve your listening skills in English language? So, as I said in classes before, a good speaker is a good listener. So, what are the strategies you use to improve your listening skills in English language? For example, do you have any problem about listening, or to you listening in English is easy, is okay, is no problem? Okay, what kind of English are you most connect to? So it's easier to listen to Aussie English, to British English, American English. For example, in the case of United States is a very huge country. So there's a difference from LA to New York to Texas, right, to Washington, D.C. So it's like in Brazil. Brazil, we have differences from state to state, region to region. So check this out too. And number 5, developing listening skills is important to you. Why? So now you have to check what's important to you, to your relationship with English, right? Some people, for example, if you're dealing just with written text, reading and writing, listening skills in first place is not very important, right? Because you are not using this as necessary, right? But for example, if you are doing a play, if you are doing a movie and you have to talk, you have to listen what people say to give back what they say. So listening skill is essential over there, right? In my opinion, you have to develop the bigger number of skills you can develop, right? Because we never know when we're gonna need it, and most of the times when we're gonna need it, if you are not prepared, you can lose some chances that sometimes is the only time they appear in your life, right? So that's it for today, folks, and see you later. I hope you're okay, and bye.